Okay. Only poetry cannot be translated well, and therefore it is poets who preserve languages. For we would not bother to learn a language if we could get everything written in it from translation. Okay. So basically what they're saying is that only poetry, right, cannot be translated well. So we don't really necessarily know about other types of literature or like
Yep.
things. And then because of that,
So if it is translated well, what do we know?
oh, if it's translated well, then it's not poetry.
Excellent.
And then I guess if it's poetry, it's not translated well. Got it. Okay. Therefore, it is poets who preserve language. So this is like what they do. They preserve languages. Because we wouldn't bother to learn the language if we were just able to access everything written in it from translation. Okay, so the poets, this is their function. The poets preserve the languages. Got it.
Okay.
So, since we cannot witness the beauty of poetry except in the language in which it is composed, we have motivation to learn the language. Okay. So I see so I'm like, okay, conclusion. Because we cannot witness the beauty of poetry except in the language in which it's composed, we have motivation to learn the language. I don't know if this is supposed to be a conditional. Is it supposed to be a conditional statement?
No, I don't think so. Essentially, what we're saying here is like, okay, poetry can't be translated well. So poets preserve language because, like, why would we bother to learn like a different language if we can't just like translate that into our language, right? So, like, I can take a book and translate it into English and get the gist, but I can't take a poem and translate it from Spanish to English and it still makes sense. Like, I can't appreciate it to the same level, right?
Yeah.
So, since we cannot witness like the beauty of poetry except in the language that is actually right, because like there's there's so many other things that are going on in poetry beyond just what it's say, like the actual words it's saying. Because like what rhymes in English, this is such a bad example because I know poetry
Oh,
is more than
yeah.
rhyming, but rhyming in English is not going to rhyme in Spanish. So like we have this motivation to learn this language.
Yeah.
All right, so the information above provides the least support for which of the following. So if we have at least a little bit of support, let's go ahead and cross it off. So
Okay,
go
got
ahead
it.
and start with A.
Okay, so all non-poetic literature can be translated well. Okay, so
Do we have some support for that?
I I think we do from the first sentence. So like if it's
Yeah,
translated well,
only
it's not
poetry cannot.
poetry.
Yeah, all poetry, only poetry cannot be translated well. I
Mhm.
think like everything else can be translated well.
Yeah.
All right, what about B?
One purpose of writing poetry is to preserve the language in which it is written. Therefore, it's poets who preserve language. We don't really know about writing poetry. We know about preserving the
Yes,
language of
purpose
poetry.
of yeah, the purpose of right, like we know that poets preserve language. But does that mean that they like purposely
Yeah, we don't know if they're the authors, like, or
or
whatever.
the purpose of writing it is to preserve language? I don't know any poet that's like, I'm gonna write poetry to preserve the English language.
Yeah.
All right, what about C?
Okay, some translations do not capture all that was expressed in the original language. Um, yeah, I guess so. Also, some is like weak, so like you can,
Yeah, and at
support
least
that.
one translation of a poem, right, is not going to express
That's the beauty.
yeah in the original language because that's what it's saying. It's like we can't get it all.
Yeah, if it's not translated to, yeah. Okay, the beauty of poetry is not immediately accessible to people who do not understand the language in which the poetry was written. Okay, since we can't witness what's except in the language in which it was composed, we have motivation to learn the language. Is not immediately accessible to people who don't understand.
So is the beauty of poetry immediately accessible to people who don't understand the language it was written in? So is a Spanish poem immediately available is the beauty of a Spanish poem immediately available to me?
Probably not.
Why not? No, why not? Like what it tells us why not.
Oh, because we wouldn't bother to learn a language if we could not get everything written from translation, which is why we have poets who preserve the language.
No, we say that we cannot witness the beauty of a poetry except in the language in which it is composed. Right? So we say
But doesn't that mean like we just can't appreciate it?
we cannot yeah, so the beauty of poetry is not immediately available or accessible to people who do not understand the language in which it was written.
Oh my God. I'm over here thinking like immediately accessible means like physically able to get it.
Yeah, well, yeah, like are we physically able to get the beauty of poetry?
Probably no.
No, like, we understand it. We're like, we don't get this.
If we
Yeah,
can't, okay, okay, okay.
I think I could see why you got tripped up by the word accessible, but yeah, that don't overthink that one.
Got it. Okay. Perfect translation from one language to another is sometimes impossible. Yeah, I could see that happening, which is why we kind of need the poets who preserve the language, like,
Well, why is it something?
motivation to learn.
Why is perfect translation sometimes impossible?
Um, I
Where's
would say
where's our support for it? Our direct support.
maybe only poetry cannot be translated well.
Yeah, poetry can like poetry can never be perfectly translated from one
Yeah.
language to another. Excellent.
I think I did. Let me see what answer I chose. I chose E. I was between A, D, and E. So I completely got rid of B. I don't know. Whatever. I get it now, but I don't know where my brain was.
Awesome. All right.